Is that a little feedback? All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome to season 4, episode 3 of your Takeover Tuesday show, your favorite show, 7 Generations Black on CTN Media, where we're changing the narrative. You know what time it is. Share this out right now on your network. Create engagement. Keep supporting independent Black media. Make sure you hit that bell. Go on over to YouTube and follow us at CTN Media. Again, let's make sure we control the narrative, change the narrative, and cultivate the narrative. It's season 4, episode 3. Welcome. Now, you know, I'm not doing this alone. No. I have a whole squad behind me. So I have to introduce you to my amazing team. First, let me tell you what this week's episode's about. It's the spirit of victimization. The spirit of victimization. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, the podcast powered to equip and inform you, clear your lens, and present you with a new perspective. With Theo E.J. Wilson. Where you at, Theo? H-Soul, LETHOL, and Jice Johnson. I'm your host, Shay J, and we are 7 Generations Black. Come on in. Make sure you share this out on your network. The conversation is going to get good. We're talking about the spirit of victimization. Now, along with an abundance of other issues we face as a people, because we know as a people we face some issue, there seems to be an ongoing debate in our community. And it is, who's getting it the worst from the society? Is it the Black men? Is it the Black women? Is it the Black children? Is it the Black LGBTQ members? And etc. The list goes on, the list goes on. So today we're going to go ahead, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about the spirit of victimization. Who's getting it worse? What's up with this conversation that we keep having in our own communities? But let me hit you with the red pill alert. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. This is your opportunity to stop listening and tune out now. Well, if you do, the story ends, and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. However, if you take the 7 Generations red pill, you stay here with us in a liberatory discussion, and we show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Now, of course, the choice is yours. Welcome to 7 Generations Black, y'all. We're going to get into this. Again, let me hit you up with my amazing panel. Shop Title Live's one and only Theo E.J. Wilson. The Honorable Protective Initiative, Mr. LETHOL. We see you with your fly shirt. My eyes aren't really that good today, but it looks cool.
Your eyes aren't good anyway.
I was just about to say, they're going to be like, can somebody get her eyes checked at this point? It's really starting to be a thing, right? Don't judge me. The Righteous Rage Institute, H-Soul, Peace King, and the Black Business Initiative, the one and only, hold it down for the sisters, Jice Johnson. Yeah, we're gonna hop right into this thing. You know, it's season 4, episode 3, so the conversation gets a little bit more deep. So I hope you share this out on your network and create engagement. Chat us up, talk us up, hit the bell. Let's have the conversation. The spirit of victimization. I'm excited to have this conversation. I think we have it amongst each other kind of quietly and silently, but too many times I think we're afraid to tell people it's time to take the victim hat off and what do we really need to address. I mean, there's 5 contributing factors when you look at victimization. It's usually your demographics, your economic status, your social activities, if there's substance abuse in the community that you're a part of. So I think when we look in the Black community, too many times we literally are asking the question, who's getting it worse? Who has it the worst? What does it look like for a Black man versus a Black woman? And really putting each other against one another. So let's jump into this conversation. Jice, my economic guru, when you hear the spirit of victimization amongst our culture, what does that mean to you, and how do you even start to frame this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that has
somebody got to get on mute. Somebody got to get on mute.
Well, I don't know who it needed to be, but all right. I am thinking about victimization in the Black community. Like, one of the pieces of the conversation that has frustrated me for forever has been the, back and forth battle between who has the worst, Black men or Black women. And, I feel like I've seen it like digress into these other, places of intersectionality. And so, that's been a frustrating topic for me as a Black woman. I think that it is a divisive conversation that pits us against each other, as though Black men can understand the pain of Black women, or that Black women can understand the pain of Black men. And I think, we try to rationalize that in a way. And I feel like it's always a conversation of low-hanging fruit, right? It's like we're not really attacking the system that has put us in a situation where we would be discussing, who has it worse. But you see that type of idea, like, not only do you see that victimization piece, but you also see like the glorification of pain and suffering, right? The glorification of, you never had it as bad as I have. You can't speak to my situation. You've never been as poor as I've been. You've never been in as much gang violence as I've had, been in. You've never been in these streets like I've been in. You've never had this experience like I've had. And, I've always struggled to understand what is that about, right? So, when I don't come from that lens, I try not to speak on somebody else's thought process in that way. But it's really been, something that has perplexed me for a long time when I've heard that type of thing. And someone who comes from East Oakland, where I have grown up in a place surrounded by violence, even in that space, you hear people making comparisons. Your block isn't as bad as my block. And, so it's just like, I feel like it's a constant narrative inside of our community with so many different layers. You're muted.
He said somebody needed to be muted. I just chose myself. I didn't know who to mute. Anyway, shout out to my girl Misha for super chatting us up. We appreciate you, sis. This is what it looks like to support independent Black media. Y'all keep super chatting us up. Ring that bell. Going over to YouTube, follow us at CTN Media. Something you said, Jice, that hit is that we've got this sense of, if we suffered, that's a level of success. And then we identify the next level after that. I always talk, when I talk to women and go on the tours talking to the women, my conversation is, sis, you do not have to be in a bad space to be in a good space. Like, let's not celebrate the bad to get to the good. But it's been this mentality that we've dealt with, and it goes over and over again in our communities. When you look at this, so I know you've always been in you've recently really been in a space of healing and healing that mindset. Where do you think this spirit of victimization really comes from in our community, and what are we really dealing with?
Oh yeah, I mean that's an easy call. That's post-traumatic slave syndrome manifesting itself, right? Like, that's just straight out of the Willie Lynch playbook, and so that's where it originates from. It's perpetuated because Black people have not been given, and I think Lethal probably does one of the best jobs I've seen as far as articulating this. But Black people, by and large, don't have a political education system that allows them to understand how they got into the situation in which they're in, and why that situation is perpetuated. And so without that, then what you do is you're swinging in the dark when you're being oppressed. And so we call that lateral violence, right? Lateral violence is because you can't strike out against the person who's oppressing you, you strike out who's closest to you, which if a man, that's a woman, if that's a woman, that's a man, if that's your children, the most disenfranchised in your community to feel more powerful. So that would be LGBTQ people. And so, yes, it originates in the Black community. I mean, it originates in our post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's perpetuated from having a lack of political analysis and understanding of how we got into the situation that we're in and how to alleviate that. And it's perpetuated from a lack of going through the necessary process of healing.
I think that was right on target. Suffer just to go to heaven. Yeah, I think religion, when you look at religion and unpacking that as a part of it, we look at this at a 7-generational lens, and we like to keep it real on what this conversation really looks like. Lethal, do you think religion has a part to play in this lens of victimization? And what are the tools that we're going to need to get out of this element of victimization?
Glad. I just woke up like maybe 20 minutes ago, so pardon me a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But so I'm glad the brother Eric out in Cyber World introduced the religion piece. I'm glad you asked me that question, Shay. I turned my camera off for a second just so I can go grab this right here.
How to make a Negro Christian, Lord. Oh my Lord.
You never read this book, right? I need you all to go ahead and go on Amazon or go wherever you need to go. Get that book. Don't worry about offending your grandma, your grandpa, and your great-grandma, and your great-grandpa, because they're the ones who introduce you to religion and so forth and so on, and your parents. Don't get upset with them. Don't think you're going to hurt their feelings. Go head on and educate yourself and get this book, right? So we are taught to be victims. We're taught that we have to be subservient. We're taught to do this thing that's unnatural, turn the other cheek. We're taught not to defend ourselves, right? Not to defend ourselves in accordance with what we know is a natural response to, for example, getting spit on, getting smacked upside your head, having water hoses turned on you, police out here, killing our kids, killing our women, raping our women. And this is 2021 I'm talking about, not some 400 years ago. You understand what I'm saying? I think it's an average of about 1,000 sisters a year. It's what they call, what is it? I'll get the name for you later on in the podcast, but there's an actual term for it, the raping of Black women by police officers. And I mean the literal raping. I'm not talking about just taking your money. I'm talking about the goody goodies. You understand what I'm saying? And so we're taught not to fight back against these things, right? And so that breeds a mental sort of state or culture, right, where we just don't want to step up to the plate and educate ourselves and understand the steps that we need to go through, right, to be on a sort of a even keel playing field, right, with our oppressor, the white male majority in this society. You know what I mean? How to Make a Negro Christian is a very, very informative book, right?
They won't even let me post the name of the book in YouTube. Can you see that, Shay? Oh, you're muted, but
no, it's not going.
Yeah. So if you're looking at my face, like, why am I smiling? We're talking about the rape by police. I'm not smiling at that. I'm amazed because YouTube, we're the moderators of the chat. They won't even let us put the name of the book on YouTube at all. I thought it was trying to change up the characters, and it won't let us put the name of that book in the chat.
So we can easily fix that. We can easily fix that, right? Everybody who want to know, right, just go back, rewind the tape when this is done at 7 o'clock, and make sure when you get to my portion, you have your pen and papers out, and you write down the name of the book. And this particular one is by a brother. Y'all can see his name.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? Because I'm not reading nothing written by a bunch of Europeans. I want a black perspective.
So
Mm-hmm.
while I appreciate that perspective, I would just quickly note that some of the greatest freedom fighters that we've ever had in the black community were Christian, i.e. Harriet Tubman, i.e. Nat Turner, and not kind of Christian.
I don't disagree with that.
Hold on.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Rooted in a liberatory Christianity. So it's not Christianity itself, it's the type of Christianity that you're being loaded up with. And so I think it's important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when we talk about Christianity, right? I think it's just important that they understand that it's nuanced, that Nat Turner, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and you can go on and on and on of all the great black freedom fighters, liberatory freedom fighters that existed that subscribed to the Christian religion.
I appreciate that piece. So,
hold on, Shay. I understand what you're saying, so, but what we can't do is name a few individuals and apply that to the masses. I'm not.
But it's not the few individuals.
Hold on, let me finish, brother. I'm not condemning Christianity, but we are here in this society, and that is the dominant religion in this society. And so what we have not actually done as a people is taking a look at our adherence to those principles. And what I'm trying to educate our brothers and sisters on is they need to be willing to take a look at all types of sources of this victim attitude that we have in our community. And it does predominantly start with what we've been taught is a Christian way of being. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, I would just push back, and I'm not just talking about individuals. We have to be very clear that the people that led the freedom movements, starting with the suffrage movement, starting with slavery, those were black Christians. When we talk about the civil rights movement, those were black Christians. It was rooted in the South. It was rooted in the church. It was rooted in black Christianity. What I'm saying is that it's a nuanced perspective. And I agree with you 100% that we have to examine it and do like James Cone does, who is part of the, who wrote a book called Liberatory Christianity, that it's not rooted in Christianity itself. It's rooted in the version of Christianity that black people are given. And so to your point, we have to examine that and use that as a tool for liberation, because Christianity in and of itself this says nothing about docility. Jesus walked into a temple and flipped over tables. I invite you to go down to West Sarah or Wells Fargo and try to flip over a table inside of there and see how quickly that works out for a brother. So I think it just depends on perspective.
Those of you tuning in, you're tuning in to 7 Generations Black. It's time for these unbought perspectives. Make sure you share this out on your network. It's time to have community conversation. Theo E.J. Wilson. First of all, we have a question in there. I would love for you to break down for the people what post-traumatic slave disorder is, and then how did we get here as a people with our victimization, the spirit of victimization, and what does that look like? Wrap that up for us.
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm the only one here without functioning hair follicles. Y'all have follicular privilege. I have been a victim of high testosterone from a very early age. When I was a child, my hairline began to recede before I was a senior in high school. And look at y'all with your full heads of hair. This is disgusting. Your blind spots. You don't see them. This is terrible. I don't know how y'all, even my community, goddammit. Where's the freaking men's hair club? So anyway, listen. Post-traumatic slavery syndrome is the natural outgrowth of generations of trauma. Generations of trauma. Like, people don't really put this into perspective. That's why there is no real argument against reparations. If you understand post-traumatic slavery, there's no real argument against it. See what I'm saying? Every reparations payment that's been settled and paid out happened to one generation of oppressed people. There's never been an experiment quite like this. We're looking at 20 to 30 generations. Keep in mind, it's not 20 years like we normally denote. These people reproduced at 14, 15 years old, okay? 20 to 30 generations of people being treated like animals. And then on the day of emancipation, it's, hey, Negroes, have good lives and raise your children in a healthy environment. How the fuck does that work? See what I'm saying? So we got certain things passed down, and they didn't leave us alone after 1865. Okay, and so the victim mentality, it's one of those things that really is a both and situation. On one hand, there's a victim mentality we need to overcome, and on the other hand, like slavery is not a victimless crime. Prison industrial complex is not a victimless crime. Jim Crow is not a victimless crime. Negro vacancy laws are not victimless crimes, right? So what I feel like needs to happen is there needs to be a twofold analysis. On one hand, we need to understand that there is a mentality that we have inherited and a kind of emotional way of being that denotes that Black folks can endure long extended sets of misery. That's what we can do, right? Because those of us who could not endure long extended sets of emotional misery either killed ourselves or just didn't make it, right? Died of sorrow. You can die of a broken heart, right? So think about that shit, right? We really went through the gauntlet. And so we can have the kind of cortisol tolerance that allows the victim mentality to stay around. And also the environment be hella victimizing us. And then our people, due to lateral violence, right? When all the chickens is cooped up, not in their natural environment, they peck at each other. Same thing with the hood, right? So we got lateral violence going on. And therefore, there's a twofold solution. You have to look at how you may be lending your own perspective and your own, like there's like a negative ego, like there's like big egos like Donald Trump and Kanye have, right? And then there's giant negative egos where motherfuckers' whole idea of themselves is hugely victimized, right? I've seen a lot of that shit happen, right? And so that's partially true. And then the other side of the equation is how the fuck do we change our environment so that incidents of victimization do not happen to us? Because both are true. But the first thing is, if you want to change anything, you have to get into the place where you feel empowered, which means that one of your first obstacles is overcoming a victim mentality, which has been inherited through at least 5, 6, 7 generations of trauma right now.
Now, if you don't hit thumbs up now, I don't know when you're going to. Stop what you're doing. Hit thumbs up. Even if you don't super chat us, you can hit thumbs up. You can share this out. You can boost the platform, boost the conversation, because these are conversations that are not happening on mainstream media. Go ahead, Jice.
And I was going to say, like, to Theo's point, you know, first of all, that's an amazing point, because I think there is a dichotomy. Like, we are absolutely victims. We have been victimized, right? And I think there is a need to recognize that, which to a certain extent, mainstream America would like to not recognize the fact that they have, you know, created essentially victims out of us, and they have victimized us. The other side of that, to the empowerment conversation, I think is where we have to have that conversation internally, right? And so, you know, I always take that from the perspective of, I don't want to get too deep into my own story in this space, but I think it's interesting because there was a time that we had a conversation around sexual assault. And I said, I've never been sexually assaulted. That's never happened to me. And then later on through some therapy, there was a trigger that something went off, and I was like, oh wait, actually this did happen to me, right? And it was a pretty substantial like situation that I literally like closed my mind and moved on from. Now, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, you know, some people say that you know, blocking that off and not healing from it is one thing, not addressing it is another thing. Like, there's a lot of different, you know, ways that you could take that. But the thing that mattered to me the most in that moment was I had not let that thing that happened to me ever stop me from moving forward and being empowered in who I am as a woman, and, you know, stopping me from seeking, you know, healthy relationships, never letting it stop me from, you know, dating, never let it stopping me from living in the full power of the woman that I am, right? And so, the flip side of that is you see women who have had similar situations where you see that stop their whole life, right? And so there's a place where you acknowledge that you have been a victim. There's a place where you advocate for making sure that those circumstances do not continue and making sure that those circumstances do not perpetuate, right? And then where do you go, or how do you begin a process of healing so that you can find the power to continue to move on and thrive, and not create your identity out of a person who has been victimized in this way? And so you have these people just using sexual assault as a reference point to victimization, who have created their entire identity out of being a sexual assault victim. I will never identify myself as a sexual assault victim. That's not who I am. And so, you know, it's something that happened to me. I am a victim of such. I am not a victim. I don't live in that space, and I will never identify as that.
Jice, man, you hit so many things, and I don't think everybody is ready to be in that place, in that mindset, which is why we have these conversations on 7 Generations Black. Why, when we're looking at what that cure is, you said a key word, and it's empowerment, finding the empowerment in that space. Why is this subject something that we really need to address, and why, and how do we find the empowerment in those spaces? And anyone can answer.
I think, go ahead, Lethal, go ahead.
Nah, I'm just going to say that, you know, this is a conversation we need to address as a community and as a people, because it's crippling us, because it has us stuck. You understand what I'm saying? In a perpetual cycle where we are continuing to do the same things, right? Even though we know, right? Let me break it down this way, right? Let me break it down this way. Today is the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's untimely, unfortunate passing, right? It's 1 year. His 13-year-old daughter and those children and those other individuals who were on that helicopter, those are victims. You understand what I'm saying? It's an unfortunate circumstance. They were vulnerable. Something happened to them. They had no control over it. That's a victim, right? If you open up some social media accounts and you don't password protect them, and your ass messes around and get your identity hiked, you're not a victim. You're just a mark. You understand what I'm saying?
Just a mark ass. You just a little mark, cuz.
You're a mark.
Right?
Serious. In the context of us as a people, right? Because we don't have that proper level of understanding, right? And the associated proper level of execution with regards to the power of our economics and our politics. Fuck that. We are not victims either. Because
let me piggyback, bro.
Yeah,
bro, because this brings me to like the environmental factor, right? Because I ain't trying to be a little mark ass nigga out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't trying to be a mark, yes. What?
I can't do this today.
Look. What this
boys in the hood like a mom.
What this man said was, so if we continue to be around white supremacy, are we marks? Cuz if this nigga ain't shown us who he was since 16 and 19, you know what I'm saying? Since 15 and 55, if you want to talk about South America slave trade, you feel me?
Go back further than that, to the 1400s, bro, where the Pope first passed the edict telling them goddamn Europeans of the kingdom of Christendom to come into Africa and make us slaves.
Hey, bro, right.
So were we a mark?
Hold on. Right. So here's the thing, right?
Yeah, we were marks.
Right. So our ancestors were victims, full out.
No, I'm not accepting that.
No. Not like no. In the way you just described it, homie. Because of course they were survivors. But I'm talking about some shit where some shit just fucking happened, nigga. You feel me? Like there were children that were taken aboard the slave ship because they knew grown-ups would revolt. All right. So this is what I'm saying. In the way that I don't fuck with Kanye when he said, "Oh, you chose to stay a slave." Fuck you, nigga. You know what I'm saying? In that way. But at this point in the game, I sometimes refer back to something my father told me at the beginning of the Trump administration. He said this fool was going to topple the house of cards, which for the oppressed is a prison break moment. This is a prison break moment, right? Are we going to take it? Like, I really need us to ask ourselves why we're raising children in a firing range, because that's what the hood be for the like gangsters and the police. You see what I'm saying? So are we some mark ass fools right now? Or are we ready to like take a look at what this is? Because if a nigga stabbed me and I'll be like, and he was coming at me with a knife and then the nigga stabbed me, I gotta be like, I'm bleeding. Nigga, show me who he was. You understand me? This is the conversation I really need to have. It would get people mad. Like, what you talking about moving to Africa and shit? Listen, these white folks came over here with a continent full of hostile Native Americans, no electricity or Wi-Fi. Fuck you talking about? Right? Escaping religious persecution. Nigga, you were in fucking chains. You want to go home? Like, that's not an option on your table? I can't talk to you then. If that's not an option, then to me, you're committed to being in a situation where you can justifiably complain at the white man and make him wrong and make you feel better. There is a reward at the end of victimization that we need to talk about, right? There's a reward at the end of it. And that is moral high ground, oftentimes. That is, I'm right and you are, right? Technically, I'm right and you're wrong. And therefore, you owe me this certain, you know what I'm saying? You owe me the reparations, which we may never get, even though we're definitely owed that shit, right? So should I fight on this battlefield with the Lord knows how many years I have on this planet? Or should I take power into my own hands and figure out my own shit? And I think that's the question at the crux of victimization.
And I love that question, Theo. And I actually would like you guys to answer that question. So what is your response to that? What should we be doing as a people? Because we know we're meeting people on different levels. Those of you tuning in to 7 Generations Black, we appreciate it. Share this out on your network. We're meeting people where they're at, and they're on different levels. What does that look like for our community?
Yeah, so I think a perfect example, and I really like what Jice was doing as far as that this is something that we're talking on a macro level, but this takes place on a micro level, meaning that we're talking about victimization as a people, but that's manifested as there's no such thing as a people. There's individuals that make up a people. So we have to look at how our individual mindsets make up and how the culture feeds into it. I would just push back a little bit on Jice's point in that around the way that she viewed her own personal victimization. She says she completely forgot about it, which in fact is which is part and parcel of being victimized, right? There's different responses to victimization. One of them is to block it out, which is exactly what she said she did. And so that she said that it didn't allow her to, and it didn't allow her to stop her or whatever, what have you. But at the same time, she that may or may not be true because it wasn't in the conscious part of her mind because she had blocked it out. And a lot of us as a people have blocked out the victimization that has happened to us. And so we say to ourselves, kind of like what Jice is saying to herself, I haven't let this stop me. I haven't let this, but until you really peel back the layers of the onion to see exactly how it's impacted your personal relationships. What is your personal relationships with men? Not necessarily Jice.
So you're trying to say this is why I'm single?
No.
Seven Generations Black.
Why?
He was black and he disappeared and the show is over. No, sir, you're hitting something good. I need you to stay right there. Keep on.
So the point that I'm making is that I love this group because we talk about macro issues and that's important, talking about Black people. And Black people are not some giant living on a hilltop. We are individuals that play out our own PTSS in the lives that we live. And so that has to be healed and worked through on an individual level, because like Lethal was saying, and like Theo was saying, liberation is something that happens from the inside out. It doesn't happen from the outside in. And so that's why the mindset has to be shifted first around victimization, and that happens because of how we identify ourselves on an individual level. Do you view yourself as a man or a woman, or do you view yourself as a God that is inhabiting a man or woman's body for this period of time? Because if you understand who you are, because this was on almost every temple inside of Egypt. Know thyself. If you know who you actually are, then you understand you set all this shit up in motion, that it's all part of the master plan. And so the process that we've gone through is only meant to bring out the divinity within us, to make us step up to the game. Because it's like thinking you're going to walk into the gym and ain't going to be no weights there for you to lift. And just because you get on the bench, that somehow you're a victim. No, you're there to push the weight. We are here to push white supremacy off of us. We will be successful in doing so once we understand who we are and why we're here to do it.
Hallelujah! I'm sorry.
But you're saying so much there, H. You know, as I mentioned, you're right in that sense that I don't know the things that affected, right? And I was triggered to remember that situation while in the process of therapy, because you do see these other things that play out. And I think even the process of beginning, like the healing process is a process of empowerment. That is when you are saying internally that I have something that I need to work through, even if you don't know all the layers or how deep it goes, right? And so like where the therapy took me was, oh snap, I remember this thing, right? But in that process, I guess, you know, my comparison is to the person who, you know, doesn't move forward versus the person who does. But even in all cases, healing is necessary.
Yeah.
And the process of starting to heal or, you know, seeking healing and walking through it is an empowering process, because it's something that's not easy. It does bring up painful things. It does bring up painful things in the past, painful things, you know, in the present, and it could make you apprehensive about the, you know, about the future, right? And it is a hard process to go internally and look at yourself and to be reflective of yourself. And I think that is a space that Black America has to come to. The Black community as a people, if you identify as being Black, like you have to come to a place of inner reflection, because we have things that we know that there are systems that are set up against us, though that's there. But also there are ways to beat the system. There are things that we've done that have set us back, and a good portion of those things, whether or not we have a reason to have the mentality that we have, right? It is still a mentality that we have to overcome in order for us to move forward. So to Lethal's point, it stagnates us as a
paralyzes us.
Exactly, it does, and I think the hard part of victimization is that victimization is often with cause, right?
That's
like
right.
you have been harmed, so it's not that it is invalid, and that is where it comes between the idea of what's an excuse versus what's a reason. And the reality is all excuses are reasons, but where are you going to go with that? Are you going to live in the excuse that this is the reason why I'm not going to move forward? Or are you going to recognize that I have a reason, but I also have to overcome that reason in order to move forward?
Come on.
And the people have not made it there yet as
That's
a whole.
right.
And I think we have to talk about those things so that we can begin to think about how they are reacting, not only for themselves, but also out in the community.
Man, Jice, you hit so many things, and I'm gonna put a plug in right there. One of my Jice and I's boys. This is why I think we have places that are important, like Inception. Our guy David has a spot. Inception in Detroit is a mental health gym, and when we sat down, we did an explosive interview with him, and we sat down and had this conversation. And one of the key things he brought up is there's so many trauma responses that we have that we're not even aware of because they became so a part of our pattern. So just like you work out your body, you have to work out your mind. And Black people, we've been so used to sweeping things under the rug, not making therapy sexy. We have to make these things sexy and cool, and we have to get down to it because our mental health is imperative to our survival. You're watching 7 Generations Black, y'all. You're tuned into season 4, episode 3. It's about time for one of my favorite parts. Before I get there, how can we realize a new reality? As we're talking about this, I hear so many different components. Like, this is a layer, this is onions, we're peeling this off. So many people are in different spaces. How do we make a new reality and really shaping our community to get out of this stuck place, this paralyzation, for the next level?
So now I think you're talking about individual responsibility, going back to Soul's point about the difference between the macro and the micro levels, right? We're talking about what can we do as individuals, right? Understand this, right? If you are a brother out here trying to be a pimp and whatnot, not in the literal sense of the word, but thinking you some kind of player and whatnot, you see what I'm saying? And, you know, sisters are not allowing you to run your bullshit game on them and whatnot, right? You're not a victim. If you're a sister out here, you know what I'm saying, trying to be a gold digger and you have bad relationships in your life, whatever case may be, you're not a victim. You understand what I'm saying? If you're just out here not taking care of your business, doing what it is that you know you need to do, not allowing someone else's actions to influence and or change who you are supposed to be naturally, you are not a victim. Point blank, period, plain and simple. This is how I see it. You understand what I'm saying? Right? I can use my parental background, you know, from a consistent perspective, both parents, high school dropouts, right? No education above high school. I think it was maybe the 11th or 12th grade. You know what I'm saying? Mother's pregnant at 16, gave birth to me when she was 17. 4 of us in the projects in Brooklyn, blah, 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 blah. You understand what I'm saying? But instead of allowing that, right, to to put me in a state of helplessness, to put me in a state of powerlessness, right? I use it, right, to make me angry. You understand what I'm saying? To keep me focused. It is, you understand what I'm saying, my superpower. You understand what I'm saying? Reclaim your shit, black people, and stop around here always looking for a hookup in order to have a come up.
Boom. I don't need anybody to say anything else. I want to go to your mindset moments now, because if that didn't get you ready for your mindset moment, hey, I don't know what is. We're going to hit these mindset moments. Today, we're talking about the spirit of victimization. And, we're always giving tools at 7 Generation Black, how to change your perspective, how to shift your mindset. So it's time for our mindset moment. As we're shifting our community's mindset in the spirit of victimization, what would you leave them with, H Soul?
Well, I think it's been reiterated by just about everyone in the panel. And I'll reiterate it again. Liberation is an inside-out journey. And until we understand that, until we embark on, Jice's whole point was that she was in therapy, right? Which means that's a mindset to understand, to even take yourself to go and make yourself vulnerable to, right? That's a whole mindset. And that is what's required, is to understand that you're not all right. You're not all right. I don't care what your bank account looks like. I don't care what kind of whip you drive, and I don't care how you're not. We are dealing with post-traumatic slave syndrome, and so it's important for everybody to put themselves through a healing journey, and that doesn't make you weak. And I'm speaking specifically to Black men here. That doesn't make you a weak. It doesn't make you punk. It doesn't make you sissified. It doesn't make you any of those things to be engaged in the process of healing. Right. And because anybody who's, like I said, has ever been through the process of healing knows that it is no punk road. It is a very difficult, challenging, painful, gangster ass road. Ask Mike Tyson, who he himself right now was one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever walk the planet. And he himself is going through that journey and calls it much more difficult than anything he ever did when he was in the ring or in the streets. And so I would just encourage Black men specifically to submit themselves to a healing journey with someone you could trust. You got to be careful with that too, right? Got to be careful with who you call a therapist out there.
That part.
Right? But at the same time, make yourself vulnerable, go through the process of healing, understand that liberation and true wealth and health is from the inside out, not from the outside in.
Beautifully said. Thank you, H. So, my guy, I'm going to go to you, Mr. Theo E.J. Wilson, as we give our community a chance to change their perspective and stop the victimization spirit and really understand how we can move forward in a better space. What do you offer them in your mindset moment?
Hey, so I just want to tell you that nothing you just said was ludicrous at all. Everything you said was spot motherfucking on, man. I just want you to know I feel you. So, here's what's popping, man. It's a two-step process. This mindset moment is set up by number 1, de-incentivizing victimhood, and 2, focusing on resilience. Those two things. De-incentivize the victim mentality. I'm just going to call you motherfucking Negroes what it is. We get something out of being morally superior to white folks. We get something out of it. We get something out of actually being like, oh, look at these motherfucking white people doing white people racist ass shit again. We get something out of it. Is it worth it though? This is what I'm saying, right? So we sit up here and don't recognize suffering when it shows the fuck up and when it's unnecessary. It's got us in a space where we're mad at everybody. We're mad at ourselves. I believe that it's behind this Black nativist movement. I really do. Morally superior to white folks, give me my reparations, and though we hate meritorious manumissions, we turn on other Black people, fuck them other niggas. You know what I'm saying? We was here first type shit. You feel me? That's also an aggressive form of the victim mentality. See, you see what I'm saying? So de-incentivize that. You're not getting enough out of it to raise your children in another fucking 7 generations of a firing range. It's not worth it. Being morally superior to white folks and staying in America just don't add up to a fair exchange to me. Period. Woo! Now, the next thing that comes from this is we're like, I say this in front of white audiences all the time. If I was white and against Black people, I'd be terrified of me. Terrified. These niggas went through what and came out playing jazz? These niggas went through what?
Right.
And fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like started crip walking and shit. These niggas went through what? And still is the greatest of all times? Where other where other folks literally went extinct in the face of white supremacist violence. We came through it and just became superhuman, nigga. Like, what the fuck? Like the white comic Bill Burr has an entire skit on how Black Americans are actually the master race, because the very same thing that you tried to put the Nazis through and making them superior, well, I've never run across a whole state, but these Negroes had to run across states. You see what I'm saying? Take your resilience. I'm not saying that we're fucking genetically superior, no stupid shit like that. That's not what I'm saying. But take heart in your resilience, what you've overcome, and focus on that shit whenever you feel like you're in a victim mentality situation. And I think that will be the most informative way to overcome it from the inside out, as Soul said.
Hey, that's a mindset moment for you. I'm going to go to my guy, Lethal. Hit us with the mindset moment. We're getting out of the victim mentality and we're shifting our culture and our community. We're looking at it from a 7-generational lens. What do you have for the people?
Power Black, resistance, activism, and revolution. The fight is not over.
The fight's not over.
So earlier on in this podcast, I alluded to a papal bull issued by the Catholic Church's Pope back in the 1450s, right? This is where the Pope told the kings, right, of the kingdom of Christendom, Spain and Portugal at the time were the two dominant ones, right, world powers at the time, to go ahead and go into Africa, right, and take the people there, right?
Reduce all infidels to slavery.
That's right. And it was a way for them to sort of counter the Ottoman Empire, right, and the Muslims who had came in from the east and taken over what today we call Istanbul. Back then it was called Constantinople, right? This type of rich history is not taught to our people. But then again, this type of rich history of self of our people isn't even something that our people seem to be interested in learning. You understand what I'm saying? Listen, Europeans did not just show up in Africa one day in the 1600s and just decide, okay, we're going to take Africans and start making them slaves, right? Africans were already going into Europe and Europeans were already coming into Africa. And there was this exchange of information, exchange of cultures and things of that nature. It was the Moors who built up southern Spain, and the castles are still standing today. This is all our history, right? So I'm saying all that to say this, right? We're not victims. We're not. We knew the Europeans' nature even before the European came into Africa. And still we dealt with the European. We're not victims. You understand what I'm saying? We just voted here in 2021 for an individual who promised to have our back, right? But here recently, this very same individual, his administration, the FBI and the Department of Justice are having conversations about whether or not they should show compassion to 800 individual terrorists that just stormed their bastion of democracy. And we put that administration in power. But we knew this administration would be nothing unlike any other administration that we've ever dealt with. And yet we still put this administration in power. But we want to scream, we're victims. No, we're not. Stand up and take some ownership of your own personal responsibility for yourself, because we do have individual abilities to respond, and allow yourselves to be held accountable. And we're talking about doing these things for our generations that are coming after us. You understand what I'm saying? Stop being victims. We have power. We are not powerless. I don't know how many mother times we gonna have to keep saying, from an economic perspective, in a capitalist society, when you are more than just the engine that's driving the vehicle, when you are the drivetrain that's driving the vehicle, if your ass decides to go broke, you can shut down the vehicle. And that vehicle is capitalism. And we are the people who spend our money the most. We keep this economy going. So when we start talking about solutions and what we can do, listen, when Sister Jice says, hey, y'all, let's shut down and not spend our money over here, let's spend our money over there, fucking support her. Because if you don't, you're not a goddamn victim. And I'm going to keep saying this. Stop calling yourself kings and queens if you ain't standing up and acting like one.
And he dropped the mic on y'all again. Boom. I'm gonna let Jice get her words in there, but first I want to say thank you to our girl Latasha Bell super chatting us up. Y'all, we see you supporting this independent Black media. It's not too late. Press the thumbs up, share this out, keep this conversation going. This is how we change the mindset right in our own community, and it starts with supporting independent media like CTN Media. Jice Johnson, I need your mindset moment. How do we shift the mindset? 7 generational lens, the spirit of victimization. How do we change that around?
Man, there have been like some amazing mindset moments. So what I feel like is that we're going to have to talk about this again, you know, and just keep taking it a little bit further and further, because I do think that it's something that I am not hearing this, not on even Black media, right? And I listen to other Black media platforms, and I'm not hearing conversations about the mindsets that we have to change internally within our community. And I think it's really important that we begin to address those things. So thank you for everybody who has tuned in. Thank you for everybody who has done like we asked and hit share and hit like and who has supported us, because these are the types of things that when we're thinking about how we are going to change our communities, like this is what has to happen. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it to awareness so then we can work on it. I was looking for this quote by Will Smith. He says, it don't matter whose fault it is that something is broken if it's your responsibility to fix it. And his quote goes on longer. He goes to give several examples. It doesn't matter it's not somebody's fault if their father was an abusive alcoholic, but it's for damn sure their responsibility to figure out how they are going to deal with those traumas and make a life out of it. And he goes on and on and on. But I think that is so important, because in the space of victimization, it is, and to Letho's point, yes, our ancestors had a hand in how we got here in this state, and had a hand in the long-lasting legacy that they're dealing with violent white racists have caused, and the pain that is inflicted for so many generations on our people. Today, it is not our fault that we were in the lineage of this, this situation, right? But once you have recognized that this is the hand that has been dealt to you in life, what are you going to do about it? And I think it is our responsibility to figure out how we move forward and make a life. And, Theo mentioned maybe we never get reparations, right? I hope we do. I hope we keep fighting for it. And in that space of reparations, there is an understanding that there is an act that needs to be, there is, a debt that needs to be paid. There's a debt that is owed to us as, a result of this 400 plus year situation, right? However, it doesn't matter what they do. They will never be able to undo the mental trauma and harm that has been inflicted on us for all this time. Even if they stop today, it is up to us to release the trauma that is literally in our DNA so that we can stop it from moving on to future generations. So what do we need to do in terms of thinking about our next 7 generations? We need to start thinking about how to end the cycle of trauma here with us, how to normalize the idea of getting the types of therapy that we need, healing, sound, food, exercise, taking care of our bodies, taking care of ourselves in the community, looking at what we have to do individually, but also recognizing that individually we are a part of the collective and a part of the whole. And what do we contribute to that? And I think I'll go back and I'll leave on this, that there was a book that I talked about before, and because the quote in that book was so powerful to me about what the community looks like. And we spend so much time thinking about us as the individual. And he said, the quote was something around like the raindrop never sees itself as the cause of the flood, right? And it's like, we all have to understand that individually, there's all things that we can do for ourselves individually, and individually we have our own power. But think about what happens when all of our raindrops are collective and we cause a flood to change the tide and the direction that we have been going for the last 400 years. We have the ability to do that when we work collectively together and leverage our power as a Black community. And that's why it's important for us to identify as being Black. That's why it's important for us to identify as a collective. That's why it's important for us to work together. That's why it's important for us to see ourselves as a community, despite the fact that we don't always live in the same place, despite the fact that we have disagreements among, a variety of different areas. We have to come together and find the areas that we agree. We agree that we are an oppressed people. We agree that we are owed something. We agree that we need to be able to figure out what to do about it and move forward. And we have to use that to create a flood of change.
Woo, Jice. Bring my brother Theo back on. I see he got on and off. Thank you. My computer was in a little freezing there. Thank you for that. I hope you guys press the thumbs up. I hope that something's been said today that you can sit with it for a minute, decide how you move forward. Again, we're trying to meet you exactly where you're at. So whatever piece of change that is for you, just start somewhere. You have the power to change your 7 generations Black. We're 7 generations Black, and we're here each and every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Remember, change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at, they'll begin to change. You owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your 7 generations Black. Until next time, family, peace and love, and keep hustling hard for your 7 generations Black. We're CTN Media.